when we met you, we were so exhausted. We were just like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
We cannot find anything decent. And we were just mind blown. I think the connection as well is important, how like working with someone and what they do. And that really touches me. And
Yeah.
when I met you, that was like, okay, we're locked in.
G'day everyone, this is Iynka here. Welcome to Investor Journeys, where we chat with everyday Aussies and seasoned investors about their property journeys, the wins, the stuff ups and everything in between. Whether they've got one property or a whole portfolio, we dive into how they did it, what they've learned and what their journey's been like so far. No fluff, just real stories from real people. So let's get stuck in. G'day everyone, welcome again to the IJ podcast. I've got a very exciting guest with me today. She's actually one of my clients. And yeah, it's been an amazing journey with her, obviously a very fresh journey for her. And yeah, I'd love to unpack that with her shortly. So welcome, Eda. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. So exciting to go through this journey with you and be a part of this and, have all your support. So exciting to be here.
No, I really appreciate it. And I think, look, with all of my guests, I always say, thank you for being open. You didn't have to do this. The main thing is for people to learn about your story. And I think a lot of, especially your generation, like they will be inspired by what you've been able to do, which we'll unpack obviously. But, starting from the start, when you started growing up, do you want to tell us a little bit about your upbringing? Have you got siblings and what kind of background you have?
Yeah, so I've got two older siblings. I'm the youngest out of them. We do have quite, a age gap. So we do have like 9 to 10 years of an age gap. And, my parents kind of grew up with humble beginnings. They weren't lavish or had everything, but they were comfortable. They do have an entrepreneurial side as well before I was born. And basically, they just wanted me to go to school, like go to just like any other family, go to school, save your money and have an education, get a good job. That's kind of what I was, you know, filled with. And it did help. I eventually kind of got into a career that I'm quite passionate about. And, it's an interesting way of looking at things. And my parents actually have some experience in the real estate. However, it wasn't a great experience.
Yeah.
So taking this journey on myself, it was kind of learning from them and from their experience, but also not taking on their failures as mine. So that was quite, an eye-opening for me.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So did you grow up in Australia?
Yes, so I was born and raised here, and my parents were really into us going to private schools
Yeah.
and wanting, great education, great support in terms of education and everything. So they did their best in terms of that.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, it's great how, you mentioned that they're entrepreneurial, but like at the end of the day, they wanted you guys to go down your own path, it seems like, and get that education. So, essentially the world's your oyster, isn't it? So yeah, that's really cool. So them being, in business or venturing on their own, I suppose, did you learn much from that? Was money and investments ever talked about when you were younger, like across the dinner table, or is it something you sort of just got to see through sort of first, second hand of what they were doing?
Yeah, so I was not in this world when my parents had their own business.
Mm.
So I came in afterwards and I was listening to more of the aftermath.
Yeah.
So it was the journey happened, this is where we're at, and this is what happened. Whereas my siblings might have like they were more around. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. So they saw kind of all of that. And basically, it was the journey that they had, and it wasn't the best
Mm.
when I heard about it.
Yeah.
It was more of like a struggle. And a lot of hustling that was happening. So I was around that.
Yeah, yeah. And if I may ask, was it related to property or was it something separate?
It does have a lot. Yes, big reasoning was the property, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was multiple properties that they had and kind of, they got their dream home, but the value of the houses weren't the best.
Mm,
And it was kind of, debt was happening. One of my parents lost their jobs. It was a lot happening for them and they kind of had to sell everything off, but they didn't get much of the value they expected.
yeah, yeah. That's understandable. I mean, it's good on them obviously for taking action and trying to better their future. At the end of the day, in my opinion, it's sometimes hopefully doesn't, put you in a detriment or going bankruptcy or something like that. As long as you can sort of get yourself out of that and make, better decisions. And obviously that's had an influence on the kid like yourself in terms of, making sure you don't make the same mistakes and all that kind of thing. So I think there's always a silver lining and sometimes in some of these, although it's very hard to see that sometimes when it's happening. So yeah, hopefully that's instilled, a lot of learnings across the family there. So yeah, you've born and raised here. Is that in Sydney?
In Sydney, yes.
Yeah. And you've gone to private school. Did you have any idea of what you wanted to be when you were at school?
I think I did kind of, yeah. I was really drawn to kids, and as I got older and into high school, I found that I'm passionate about kids and caring for others. So, yeah, I kind of got into my nursing career, and from there, it was just continuous. I found more passion in herbal medicine and alternative medicine and just holistic wellness. That was kind of what I grew into over the years. And I always wanted a property for myself. I just didn't know how I was going to get there, but it was something that I always wanted when I was, young.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll definitely want to tap into that. I mean, I know, it's funny enough how we got introduced. I mean, it was actually through a referral, but through your sister, we found out that I remembered we actually worked together with your sister. And when I was an engineer and on the same project, and then obviously she introduced me to you, but I know they've had some experience with property themselves. So you would have seen some of that in your own upbringing, I suppose, especially in your older years. But yeah, what drew you to property? I mean, you're going through this nature sort of health wellness side of things, but it obviously sounds like you also have, a mindset where wealth or creating wealth is quite important. So what sort of brought that on? Do you think that was, your parents or your family, or was that just something that you somehow ingrained through media? What was it in regards with that?
Most of like my early 20s, I was really into self development. And through that, I've met so many people in terms of in a spiritual path and also through mentorship. So I've had mentors before and they've basically, you know, taught me a lot of things and things that I should incorporate day to day, whether that's reading, something that's important or listening in terms of business. That really put more fire into me. It was more like I was with the people that I wanted to be, if that makes sense.
Well, I think that's a huge point because in your early 20s, especially getting out of school and everything like that, like the mindset is very different to, building wealth and buying properties, right? Like it's, obviously I am generalizing and I think, in some respects it is getting better, but the generalization is that obviously a lot of kids go off to the OEs, go on holidays, buy their cars, they've got independence, and they want to splash a bit of money, they want to get out of the house, all that kind of thing. Whilst that's great, obviously you're trying to find yourself, but it's not, the norm in terms of, getting and thinking about building wealth. And, I applaud you for that. And I think you do have some good role models in your family as well, but you've been with the right people. I think that's key. It is talking to the right people, having that education, learning from others who've sort of done it before. So it sounds like you were in that really good group
Yeah.
in your early 20s.
Yeah.
So then now tell me you've realized, okay, property is probably the thing for me. How long did it take you to get to actually make the decision to purchase?
some of mentors, they don't actually recommend buying property
Mm.
because of the debt that you will be in, right? That took time for me to kind of grow out of. My sister, she's been, into that whole property and investing. She's quite familiar with it. She was kind of teaching me her ways and what she's got on and how things are going for her. So she kind of plugged me in more personally from her perspective. And because I was still in uni and, had a part-time job, I wasn't anytime ready to kind of invest. Even though it was at heart, I wanted to be there, I think it would have taken more time for me. So yeah, it was just more of a timing thing. Like I finished uni, I found my full-time job. I had this goal that I wanted essentially. So, and it wasn't just one job, I had not two jobs.
Yeah, I'm aware. When we first met, you told me how hard you work. It was pretty much around the clock, 7 days. Yeah, I thought this is someone who obviously is driven, and I think would do well buying property as well. So yeah, I do know that.
So that was essentially the package, the care package, right? You need a full-time job and, in order to be assessed by the banks,
Yeah.
right? And in terms of my situation, my parents were able to guarantor me.
Yep. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that journey? Because I think it's important for people of, your age and, who if you don't mind me saying, quite young, and especially relatively in property investment. I think it's important to understand what that is. Do you want to give us a little bit of understanding of that sort of discussions that you had with your broker about the guarantor and what it is?
Yeah, so basically with the guarantor, they use the property or they assess the value of the property that, your parents have.
Mm.
That includes if, they're in debt as well.
Yep.
So in terms of that, they assess if they can guarantor you and how much they can guarantor you. And luckily, my parents were at a point where the property is valued quite high. So they are able to be 100% guarantor for me, which means I won't be putting in a deposit. However, it does affect interest. So my interest would be slightly higher than someone who has, potentially put a deposit in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, I suppose, the risk that the banks see and put that interest on. So yeah, so essentially it's security against your parents' property. Obviously, you've got to make the repayments, and yeah, the parents have to understand all of the nuances with everything and what the risks are. But it's a great way for young people to get into property, especially if they do well. The things I think I told you and others about when you go with a guarantor loan is you are taking 100% loan out. So if your cash flow is, or your money management, whatever you call it, like savings rate, generally is not great, it's going to be compounded by taking that extra loan amount on the loan, right? Which is also going to be charged, whereas normally you just put a deposit down and that loan comes down, and it sort of reduces the difference between the expenses, I suppose. But yeah, taking 100% loan out, you've got to be aware of all the cash flow requirements with that. But at the end of the day, if you can get into a property which is, turning pretty quick and, rather than saving another couple of years to save or anything like that, then yeah, it can work very, very well. So yeah, so that's really good. So yeah, so you got that, you got the guarantor loan, you obviously talk to your broker, talk to your parents, and that loan not only covered the property, but it would cover the stamp duty as well. Was that right?
No, stamp duty would be from my
Okay.
expense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just for the property. Yeah. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
So in a bit more detail about this is that in my circumstance, I wanted to open my own ABN. And, one of the brokers that we had a chat with, he really advised not to do that until I actually buy a property.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was heavily advised
Yes.
because it'll be a longer journey if that was the case. So I actually had to kind of put a hold on my passion a little bit and kind of stick to, just working for someone, and which I'm okay with. I really, like work doing that anyway. However, it does put a hold on, you know, having my own practice and working with my own clients. So that was a good little nugget that I got from the broker. Even though I didn't actually settle with a broker, I went with a bank.
That's right. Yeah, I do
Yeah.
remember that. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's a great point because the way the banks would see it is essentially because you sometimes wonder, well, I'm getting 100% loan anyway. What's the point? Now, why do I have to, wait for an ABN? But the point is that the banks would want to see constant salaries going in and constant income to be able to be confident that you can make the repayments on the loan. That is the main thing for them. So yeah, look, it does typically once you open your ABN and you're not working in other PAYG jobs, it can be 18 months to 2 years before you can get assessed properly, which hampers a lot of people that actually start businesses and even do very well. Obviously, there are some other lenders out there that do look at extenuating circumstances, but yeah, that was good advice for you, I think. So yeah, so you put a pause on that, and then you essentially started the property journey. And then, yeah, like I said earlier, your sister reached out to me. We didn't know each other and said, I've been referred by my friends. And I said, your name looks familiar. But yeah, we got to talking, the three of us, about the next steps. But maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit because I do know, I mean, she did mention to me that you were looking at the start. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you were doing then?
When we met you, we were so exhausted. We were just like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
We cannot find anything decent. And we were just mind blown. Like,
Mm,
in terms of a first property for me, she's just like, what are we going to do? I mean, she kind of hit it a bit more, but I was kind of like, I can't believe this. This is like impossible at this point. I don't think I'm gonna get to the like get to finding something for myself. So I would say for 6 months we were just looking and just trying to just looking
yeah.
basically. And we kind of were like, okay, we don't think we're gonna settle in Sydney. My sister's like, well, would you consider out of Sydney? And yeah, I kind of worked my way through that, and we got some quotes from other investors, and we weren't really happy with it. I think the connection as well is important, how like working with someone and what they do, and that really touches me. And
Yeah.
when I met you, that was like, okay, we're locked in. This is the place that we can work on. So essentially, yeah, it was God sent that we, found our way to you. And, you worked with my sister previously. So yeah, it was just great.
Yeah, very kind words. I mean, I think it was great. Obviously, the couple that referred me as well, we've worked with them a lot, and I think that probably had a big influence on especially your sister and then yourself. But yes, I did remember our first conversation. We were having quite a deep chat about a lot of things, about finances, about strategy. I straight away said we're not going to be in Sydney, we're not going to be in Central Coast, but I did give reasons, of other areas why, and then we locked in. I spoke to your broker as well. We got the down low on your finances, and then we sort of hit the ground running, didn't we? And, we proposed Townsville at the time. A lot of it was to do with the amount of growth we wanted to start, but also the cash flow requirements as well. So at that point in time, I mean, look, it was even, it was this year, but at that top point in time, the cash flows over there are pretty good, albeit that I was trying to educate you on the net yields because obviously there's higher insurances and rates as well. So that does balance things out. But yeah, at the end of the day, you guys were comfortable with that. And we sort of, went along our search. And yeah, do you want to tell us a little bit about the process? Because obviously, yeah, I do remember, we presented a couple of properties. We even put one offer down and we missed out. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that journey? Because I know that's all quite new for you.
Yeah. So we did get a few praises from you, and it wasn't essentially, I mean, they're great properties, and obviously, all the behinds of it. However, there was a few things that we were like, "Oh, we really, really, really want this." And I'm not sure, did we decline an offer? Is that what you were
No,
saying
we
with
no. So what happened was there was one property I do look. It's hard. I need to go back and check all the property, but yeah, there was definitely one property that we put forward, and it just wasn't quite right for you. I think mainly on the land size. But the second property, we actually put an offer down, and I
Oh,
was
that's
speaking to
right.
the agent, and you were actually really keen on it, and it was off market, and unfortunately, another BA, yeah,
Yes.
that went on top of us. So I'll let you know, and you're obviously a little bit disappointed, which
Yep.
is natural because it was,
Yep.
it was a nice property, nice renovated inside and everything like that. But that's just the way it goes. I said, don't worry, like there's plenty of more opportunities, and
Yeah.
yeah, and then this one came along, which is in, if you don't mind, I'll say the suburb. It's Railway Estate, so it's actually very close to the city. But there are areas, and we had a lot of conversations about this property because number one, there are areas which do flood around, and so we had to have a conversation about the history, flood zones, and everything like that. But this particular pocket has not flooded before. It's out of a flood zone. I actually have, I think I mentioned to you, I've got people who live there who've given me their unbiased view of the area too. But I think that the big ticket item with this one was essentially it was on quite a big land, and it was already subdivided. And I remember that was one of your requirements, or at least, preferences, let's say, of it having the potential, not just already subdivided, but just having potential. But it was actually already subdivided for us. And I don't think the agent actually knew until we got the titles, and you saw the titles, right? And I had to go back and confirm that. And yeah, it was already subdivided, and the house was sitting on a certain side. Lovely house, really nice character house, had all the little things on the ceiling, the roses and all that.
Yeah.
Forgot what you call it, but yeah, such a nice property, and it was just renovated as well, wasn't it?
It was a dream, like, it and I think you were shocked. You were like, "Whoa," like, "I think we got something here." And even the process, it was kind of like, "Okay, we need to do our checks because we have a limited time
Mm.
to kind of decide on this property." So we straight away got onto it and did our own research as well. And, we were going back and forth. And I guess, yeah, it turned out to be just amazing for us. And we did all our checks. We were really happy with it.
Yeah, we did we did the blood checks, we did the insurance checks. Remember that? We were talking about different insurers. They were coming up crazy. So I said, try some of these guys. But the other side of things, which I think I alluded to you when we were buying it, was this. So this agent I know very well. We've got a really good relationship with him. And the good thing about having good relationships is they're very upfront, like they're very honest. And they actually said to me, with this particular property, we had an offer about $25,000 over what we were going to offer, but their finance got declined. And then they had another one, which I think they were also well over what we paid, but they had some issues again, either with the finance or something, I can't quite recall, and they couldn't quite purchase. So they were like, so I was like, do you think you'll take this much? And I said, I think that the big thing is that the seller had gone through so much of expectations. He just wanted it done now. We just put this offer in, and, and we got it at, yeah, in my opinion, very, very good value. And yeah, and then that's that. Like once we did all the checks and did the offer and everything like that, it was great. And then, yep, we went through the whole building and pest and finance and everything like that. And it was, yeah, it was really good, wasn't it? So you're a property owner now. And I think the big thing, it wasn't tenanted at the time. And I still also remember we had a rental appraisal of a certain amount, and the property manager put it $50 over what we even
Correct.
recommended. So where we got, the property manager found a tenant at the higher end of that appraisal, didn't they?
Yes. They basically offered kind of like a $50 increase. And, my agent was really enthusiastic about the property, and she really felt like, we can kind of go for more of the higher range. And she's like, let's give it a go. Let's see how it goes and just see what the market tells us. And, statistic wise, it wasn't kind of pulling up with applicants, which we want applicants essentially. We decided after a couple of weeks. that, maybe we should kind of reduce it
Mm.
back to kind of the mid-range, which worked out good. We got heaps of applicants after, and it was all just a pick and choose game after that. And, within 10 days to, 2 weeks, we basically got someone renting out the property.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Look, I know the area, and the vacancy rates in that specific area was quite low. And, speaking to the property managers beforehand about the location, there wasn't many properties for rent. So I think you're in a unique position to be able to pick and choose. I think that's quite a luxury in property as well. So that's fantastic, especially at that upper range. And, partly why we went into that location, the vacancy, the demand was going to be there for you. And obviously, having just settled a property and having guarantor loan, we want to make sure there's not much vacancy and there's demand for that type of property as well. So it was all planned, Eda. So I'm
Yes.
glad it worked
Yeah, it
out.
worked out really good. And we had great applicants. People, like one example is that we have a military base next to
Yeah.
Townsville. So that was a positive thing. And people who are kind of, getting a good salary and stuff like that. So it was great. Yeah.
Stable jobs is what you want. So that's really good. So you've got this property now, potentially in the future, you can always subdivide and it's already subdivided. Whack on another property on the side, get a double income, that could be in the future, but I'm sure there'll be a few years before that all happens. So, but look, the potential's there, and I'm really glad and happy for you that you've been able to get such a great property, and, it's in a location which is, in my opinion, going to be in demand for a long time. So yeah, really happy for you.
Thank you so much, Inka. Yeah, it's great opportunity. I've learnt so much, and during the journey, it was all worth it. So
Fantastic. Yeah. Interstate as well. So obviously that they're all unknown. So I'm glad we could help you out that way. So I suppose from here, you'll just sit on it for a little while and see how it runs. And then, we can always look into the future, into what you're going to do. But look, I see some really good things for you. You're very driven, business wise, just in terms of, your thinking and mindset and always wanting to develop. It was really good to see you asking a lot of questions as well. So I think that helped this whole process for you to be able to understand, the whole process a little bit better too. So I'm sure, you're a wealth of knowledge now on the second property whenever that comes. So that's really good. And look, speaking of, now that we've got that property, under your belt, essentially, it's time for you to start the business. What's your plans with that? And what's your sort of thoughts on that moving forward in the sort of health industry?
So basically, working with partnership with a company and, having my own practice is basically what I wanted, to work clinically with people. So I'm really excited for, what's to come.
Yeah. And we were talking off air that now you've started to help other people in the vitamin industry. Do you want to give a little plug out to what you're doing now? And we can obviously link it in the show notes.
Yeah. So I work for Mr. Vitamin supplement store. It's a health food store. And basically I work within the clinics there, and I've got an Instagram. It's called Present Apothecary, just to, kind of give what we're doing and have a bit of an insight and, get to know me as well as a person. So it's really exciting.
Awesome. Well, like I said, we'll link that in the show notes, and anyone out there wanting to, know more about this sort of industry and vitamins and et cetera, like Eda's the person to speak to. She's great. So yeah, look, again, thanks so much for coming onto this podcast. Thanks for being patient, this whole connection issues that we've had today. And yeah, really glad. And like I said, a lot of people are going to be inspired, especially in your type of generation who are just coming into the working force, over a few years and looking at property, but thinking maybe it's too hard. It's not. I think you've just proved that. Obviously, it all depends on people's circumstances, but, in my opinion, your circumstances isn't extraordinary. I think it's something you've just worked with, and you ask the right questions and you talk to the right people, and yeah, you've made it work. So is that what sort of advice you would give to people of your age?
Yeah. I mean, if you have any goals, any achievements that you want to achieve, it's more about just having your grit and just working towards it. One of my mentors would always say, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So it's just all a work in progress. Even if you feel like, you're going to fail, just keep going and you'll just find ways to kind of get to where you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think pretty much get out of your comfort zone is what you say to get to move forward. So I completely agree with that. We've got to have the right mindset. But Eda, thanks again for joining on. And really appreciate it. And yeah, like I said, I think our listeners will get a lot out of it.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me here.
No, not a problem anytime. And look, we'll hopefully get you on in the future on the next properties whenever that happens.
Amazing. Yeah. Give you an update with everything.
Sounds good. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed that episode and we will catch you on the next one. Have a good day. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the chat, feel free to drop us a rating on Spotify or wherever you listen. It helps us reach more listeners to help them with their journey. Catch you in the next episode.